Hey everyone, I've just started this about a minute early, just so you all have time to get in, find it, make sure we're all watching the same thing. So just let me know that you can see me and let me know that you can hear me. I'm going to grab the YouTube link and drop it into Facebook. Okay, people are in. Excellent. You can hear me, you can see me. We're editing week fall homework. That's excellent. I'm so excited. All right. Awesome. We're here. Excellent. All right. We're here. We're ready. Technology is working. I heard one of my dogs bark downstairs, so I'm hoping that doesn't happen anymore. You probably won't hear them, but okay. I took those last 6 topics that were on my list. Dave, you are in the right place. This is current and this week's. So I took those last 6 topics that I had on my list, and I went ahead and planned out the next 6 weeks. So we're good, but then I will be needing more topic ideas. So definitely keep them going, or just ask a general question in the group and I can decide if it's worth talking about for an hour or not. Okay, but tonight you guys wanted to talk about this ready to work versus ready to learn. And it is kind of specific. I started doing it differently for Shrek. So if you're kind of having the same thing, some of the same issues that I kind of ran into with Shrek, I think it could be really helpful. And I will start to say that it doesn't matter how I do this with my 2 border collies. Yeah, I know. I can't do much about the sun. So, and I don't want to move. I like where I am. I could go closer to it. I could maybe, oh, there we go. That's better, right? That's better, right? Okay. Anywhere up here is going to have a sun glare because the windows are behind me. It doesn't work to have the desk. Anyways, it doesn't work to have the desk anywhere else. Okay. Ginger, I am so impressed that you were out doing homework in 103 degrees. That is very impressive. Okay. So let's start with defining working versus learning. Okay. Work in my mind is like an effort session. It's where I am stringing more behaviors together. So in agility, it would look more like coursework. It would include most, if not all, of my trial routine. So even if the course isn't a full course with all of the obstacles and everything, if I treat it like, if it's a coursework session, I treat it like a trial. And that means I've got the start line routine and the end of run routine and all of that. So that it's like an effort session. I'm not looking for, of course I want precise responses to my handling and precise weave pull skills and good contacts, but I wouldn't be sequencing those things if I didn't already have those things. So the precision isn't the focus of a working session. Okay, so you guys are hearing all my notifications, right? So I'm going to turn that off. So a working session is an effort session. The dog is going to get a payout regardless of how it goes in there because he did it with me. All right. So working is about effort, and it's it's practicing the trial behaviors. You can put whatever you want into your effort session, but you're going to be it's more like a trial. And then I have learning sessions, and that's all those other times that I'm training. Like probably 80 to 90% of the time, I'm going out to train and reinforce and put money in the bank for a specific skill. Could be a handling skill, could be an obstacle skill, could be some sort of sequencing together skill, but it's a precision thing where I would have a protocol if there was an error, how to react, withhold reinforcement or give reinforcement, whatever. But it's very different than an effort session. Okay, so that kind of sets the stage for these two separate ideas between ready to work and ready to learn. And so just let me know that you're still with me, or if you have questions about that, let me have them now. But but working is not the same as testing. No, a working session would be the same as testing for me because treats are only at the end. So I guess I should include that effort, testing, trial, like the food is off your body. It's after the end of run routine. So it's after getting leashed up and going. So I could do a testing session that I plan to have the cookies on me, but it's a different test, right? I think it's a completely different test when the food or the toys are off of our bodies and the dog knows that it's off of our bodies. Haley, yeah, you guys are, I mean, everywhere is hot. It seems like the world is, if not literally on fire, figuratively on fire. Some places are literally on fire. So I'm glad that you are not outside teaching all night as you normally do. Okay. So kind of what happened was I had one kind of readiness protocol for Shrek, and I started to see his desire to train fade when I started adding in more working sessions. And I thought that was weird because I do think he enjoys the obstacles. He enjoys agility. I don't think we had, I pretty much ruled out anything physical or health-wise. So I know it wasn't something like that. He's in good shape. He's healthy. And he would still poke at me and ask for like training and attention in the house. So I was only having like these issues when I would go to a location where it could be either, where I could set up a working session where there wasn't going to be a high rate of reinforcement, or a training session. So there was some confusion. So I was getting a little bit more no's than I expected, and I wanted to change that. So I separated my two like consent protocols. I rerouted the question. So when I'm getting ready to work him, so effort session, longer chains, I'm probably going to do my full start line routine, ring entry routine, all of those things, run some sequence of various length. It doesn't have to be 20 obstacles. And then the reward is going to be off my body, where he gets it after the leash is put on. He has a different, do you want to do this protocol? And that protocol, I get the food away from us very, very quickly. I do kind of think he thought, that's weird. I assume he was a little bit confused by food being available all the way up to the ring entry, and then boom, it being gone. And then when we would do a training session, the food was just always available. So I think there was too big of a difference for him. So now my ready to work protocol gets the food away very, very quickly. I might do a little bit of warm up with food. I kind of test that he will even eat in the environment. So if he will eat, all right, cool. I might ask, can he tug the tug or chase a ball or whatever? So I'll make sure that he's kind of there. But then when we go and we put the food away, we kind of just go into a wait your turn type of thing. We don't have to do a lot of tricks or anything. We just go into stationing. He's between my legs, or he's on a station, or I'm holding him. He can just wait his turn. Because the high rate of reinforcement outside of the ring, getting ready, and then the no more reinforcement going into the ring, really, I think, screwed us up. And I mentioned in the very beginning that this makes zero difference to my border collies, because agility is pretty easy for my border collies. They're not distracted by people. They're not distracted by smells. They're, or let's just stereotype them here, they're border collies, and Shrek is a terrier, right? These things are more difficult for him, and I think those lines were blurred. So ready to work has its own protocol that includes putting the reinforcers away on the table and Shrek saying, all right, that's fine. Now we can go work. So I think it's a more informed decision for him to say, yes, I would like to work, when he sees that the food is on the table. But kind of, I wanted to say off the table, but as a metaphor, but it wouldn't have worked here because it's literally on the table instead of in my pocket. And Teresa's saying I did that with my terrier too, took some work to fix my mess. It's a pain, isn't it? It's absolutely awful. But here's the thing, they can't be tricked. So many dogs, they just get tricked. Here's some food, here's some food, here's some food, here's some food. Yeah, you totally think there's food gonna come, and they just deal with it. There's no tricking a terrier. It's not. You're just not going to. Good luck. May the odds be ever in your favor. Because if you trick them, they'll probably kill you in your sleep. So, anyways, if we're still with me. Ready to work gets the food off of my body much sooner, and we do not have a high rate of reinforcement waiting outside the ring. So we put it on the table, we walk away, and that it's possible. I kind of felt like if I needed food to keep his focus outside of the ring while he's on leash, is he gonna be able to focus inside the ring off leash? It's one of those things that food outside of the working ring, I think, gets used as a band-aid for a lot of stuff. And maybe I'm kind of dipping into the not great at practice, not so great at competition, but that could be a big reason why. Like, if your dog just can't hang out and generally keep their focus without food being stuffed into their face 24/7, it might not go so great in the ring. And this can go for whatever the issue is, right? But I'm specifically talking about focus because that was Shrek's issue. I use food outside the ring for Smack to manage arousal, and it works. But I think he likes agility more than he likes food, so it works in my favor there. He's not missing out by the food stopping when we go into the ring. I think some dogs, they know that outside the ring is a super high rate of reinforcement, so why would they want to go into the ring and work when they're getting just food stuffed into their faces constantly outside the ring? So there's that. Good on that. That's ready to work and what it's used for, and I use it when I do a working session at home or at a training facility. It's his choice to leave the food, right? You guys, we've kind of been over that, teaching the food off body. So what about dogs that can play in training but not at shows are the same? But not at shows the same. Well, we are going to do a whole live about that, Bonnie. So if we have time at the end, bring me back to this question. But I already have it planned to do a whole hour on that question alone. Okay. But if we're good on the purpose of ready to work, let me know if you have questions about the purpose of ready to work. Because then when I kind of realized I had gotten myself into this mess, I needed a way to still assess his readiness for just a learning session where I just want to go outside and train him. I want to have food and toys available the whole time, very liberally feeding him for every decision he makes. Hardly, right? Like, it's a different type of session. So I needed to be able to tell him that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be training. We're not going to be working. I'm not going to ask you to do hard things. I'm going to make sure you have a steady flow of food flying or toys or whatever. And so I don't do all of my same routines. I get him out of the car the same way or get him out of the crate the same way. That looks the same, but I don't do the same ring entry routines. I don't do the same start line routines. I do everything a little bit differently, and then we just go in, right? We just enter the training space. I have a training vest on. I have a training vest on. I've got stuff all over, and it's very clear that the food is on me. And so how I ask him if he's ready is I show him the way we're going to reinforce during that session. So if I'm going to use a pre-placed toy to train whatever sequencing I'm doing, that's what I'm going to start with. Is I'm going to put him in a sit. I'm going to put a toy on the ground. I'm going to ask him to take the toy and make sure he brings it back. Because if he doesn't take the toy, well, guess what? You can't train with that reinforcer. I need to change the strategy. So I'm going to start with the reinforcement strategy that I want to use before I even ask for any behavior. So if I cue him to take the dead toy and he does, super. Now I'm assessing how quickly is he bringing it back. If he brings it straight back, super. All right, we're going to tug a little bit. We're going to make sure he's all there. We're going to go right into the training. If he goes, but then runs around for a little bit and doesn't bring it straight back, okay, he's not ready to learn. He's still figuring things out in his environment. So I might throw the Frisbee again and see what happens, see if I can get it worked out. Or I might just put him on a station and let him look around for a little bit. Because that's something I can allow him to do in a training session. I can't do that as freely in a working session or in a competition environment. He can have a perimeter sweep, but he doesn't have that opportunity to scope out the ring when we're competing. Not really. I mean, if it's quick, fine, but he doesn't have that opportunity to say, hey, I need a minute. So I need him to know that he's not going to get that minute, that he needs to be good and okay to just do it or not do it. But in learning sessions, I can give him that time if he says he needs that time very easily. And I just don't continue if he's not bringing the toy back the way I should. So the process is just a little bit different. Does that make sense? And it's very clear to the dog. Like when I'm at a trial or I'm practicing working sessions, I don't have my training vest on. I have the cookie jar instead of the training vest, all of those things. So it's very clear the difference. Question. At what point would you start ready to work sessions when you're training a green dog? Immediately. Obviously they're getting introduced to the ready to learn process and the ready to learn protocols very, very frequently, because that's how I'm going to start every training session. But as soon as I have one or two pretty fluent behaviors, I'm doing these like working sessions in my living room. So I might leave the cookie jar in the kitchen and ask the dog to go into the living room with me and do a nose touch, and then run back out and get the cookie jar. So it can start very, very early. And we did an entire live on delayed reinforcement, so I unpack that a whole lot more in that one. But I start the process of, look, we're going to leave your cookies here. Do you still want to go in there and do something? Very, very early. The earlier the better. Just because I think we use our food for too long. We say, oh, the dog can do all the obstacles, let's enter novice. Don't do that. It works out for some dogs to do it that way. And then you have the group of dogs that they're skeptical, but they're still doing it. And then there's the rest of the dogs going, yeah, sorry, no. You lied. This is totally different. I don't get it. I don't know what I signed up for because I don't have thumbs and I didn't get to sign the release forms, things like that. So very early. Context is very big in truffle hunting. Didn't think about it. Yeah, they're looking for it anyways, and they are finding it. So you might as well be in control of the context. They are masters of context and figuring out all of the cues in their environment around them. So my dogs totally know the difference if we're going to get out of the car and be going for a walk versus we're getting out of the car to do work. I'm different. Their leashes and their collars are different. So when they get out of the car at a trailhead or something, none of them are offering me work behaviors. None of them are like, yeah, work me. But if we go somewhere and I get them out on their like training harnesses or training leashes, and I put the vest on and I grab the toy, if I grab all the right things, they go, oh, we're doing agility, so we better start offering her ready to learn behaviors and start pushing me for work. They do that. They don't talk. My dogs don't even look at me when we're out for a walk. They're just gone, sort of, up ahead, right? They just know the difference. So the same thing is happening already. Your dogs know when you're at a trial because whether you like it or not, you're different. You're acting differently. So if you put a little bit of structure around how you're working, you're acting different. I know that there's a lot of emphasis on train like you trial like you train, and to a certain extent that's true, as in, try to be consistent with your handling, try to be consistent with your cues, but there's no fooling them. They know the difference between training and trialing. They know the difference between you're filming this session and you're not filming this session. And if you haven't experienced that, then you need to film yourself for a competition, all this virtual trialing. Because, or the Finzi team titles. Oh my gosh, I thought it would be just a breeze. I just, everything was looking good. I had run through it a couple of times without being filmed, no problem. Everything's super. We're just in my living room. Turn the camera on. Took like 6 tries. So if you can try your best to make everything the same between trialing and training, and it just isn't going to happen. So the better answer here, I think the more efficient answer here, is just prepare your dog for the differences. Like, yep, I'm going to be a little bit nervous. My voice might be a little bit more high pitched, or maybe I get a little bit more quiet, or maybe I lead out like I need to use the bathroom, but just deal with it. Just make them like it. Make them be okay with it. Set them up to be okay with it, and you'll be fine. Okay? Excellent. I'm glad it makes sense. Like I said, smack and shock, they don't care. If agility is on the table, they're doing it. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I ask them if they want to or not, they're going to. And they're never going to tell me no. So there are those dogs that yeah, you're fine. Don't bother. And then there's Shrek. And I think there are a lot of dogs like Shrek. All right, throw your questions at me. Guys are quiet tonight. Do you find any dogs become more obstacle focused at a trial versus working at home? Yes, it can go that way. They can. I kind of think of this. I think the most common thing that we see is that the dogs just bolt into tunnels. So they kind of just they whatever the reason, whether because some dogs could become more handler focused in a trial, and some will become more obstacle focused. And I think it comes from, I don't know the answer, so I'm just going to do what I think might be right. I'm going to keep doing things until something I recognize happens. I think we get those out of the ordinary behaviors, and maybe, Bonnie, this is maybe a little bit answering your question as well. We get those out of ordinary behaviors when they're not totally sure what the correct answer is. So sometimes it's in response to the handler being, cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs because you're competing, which that is the most difficult thing to replicate in training is your own competition nerves, which is why I think virtual trialing, this video competition, could be a really good thing. Because in my experience, I mean, just putting the camera on you, I know when I go to film a demo for an online class and it doesn't go well the first time, I am a little bit frustrated because I went out there and I need to get this video for the class and it didn't happen the way I wanted it to because, gosh darn it, I'm human and my dogs aren't machines. So that, I mean, just putting the camera on you could be a thing. So if you also did some virtual trialing, even if you didn't sign up for the trial, but you just went out to run a course and you told yourself you're only going to have one shot, and then I say you're going to go inside, it's a good way to start practicing the human side of the nerves, for sure. But I tend to think those weird, out of the ordinary videos, those behaviors, those kind of strange, only in a trial behaviors, come from a place of uncertainty. So they're just trying to figure it out. How long do you learn something before you test it? It's gonna vary for sure. So you could look at it two ways. You could test it at every stage of the training. So for instance, like with the weave poles, one could test weave poles when you're just on one gap. So you take the reinforcement away, make sure they could weave one gap, and go get cookies off to the side. I'm not sure I would, because the reinforcement jar isn't that full. I'm not going to test something until I think that the reinforcement history could withstand an error. So I know it's not a very satisfying answer, but some things I would test very quickly and some things I wouldn't. So like with the tiny puppy, I'm testing nose touches and sits within like a week. Or what, simple behaviors, I'm testing them very, very quickly because they're not very complex behaviors, or they're not very expensive behaviors in general. But the more complex the behavior is, the more components the behavior has, the more training, the more reinforcement I'm going to need before I test it. Is that helpful? Sort of. Okay. My dog totally shut down in my front yard when doing UKI virtual agility. I had no idea. He would not work at home when the toy was outside the ring. I've tried a toy station, but he still pouts. Is back chaining the best strategy to fix this? 1 jump toy, 2 jump toy, 3 jump. In general, yeah, Laura, this is how I would go about it. I would make sure that he's comfortable with leaving the toy outside the ring, so I would make that a choice-based procedure. And if you did listen to the delayed reinforcement, or if you go back and listen to the delayed reinforcement, I went through the process of how to do that. But I would make it so that he sees you put the toy outside the ring and he chooses to go into the ring to leave the toy there. And then, yeah, I would back chain it. So I would do, you could decide if you want the leash being put on to be a part of it or not, but I would do like the last 2 obstacles, leash, toy, the last 5 obstacles, leash, toy, and so on and so on. Yeah, exactly. Take a gold spot in an FDSA class and you really want to post a video and it's not going well, or the camera doesn't work, and yeah, putting a camera on you can definitely increase the nerves. My youngest Sheltie recognizes a virtual trial as a trial. Great opportunity. Exactly. Because we are different. And so they recognize these differences so quickly, which is, like I said, I don't think it's worth our while to try and convince them that trials are just like training, because they're not. Just show them that they're different and that both ways are fine. Neither way is wrong. We just need them to be able to do both. Oh, someone is also saying consent live stream is great. And sometimes we don't get consent. Yes, exactly, Dave. Eventually, you just don't care that there's a camera on you, and that also will mean that eventually you won't care that you entered and paid money for someone to judge you. Eventually, that just becomes normal and something we enjoy doing. But we might start going into mindset skills now, but when you think about it, you're signing up and paying money for someone to judge you. And we enjoy it, or we pretend to enjoy it. Something like that. So I think the first step would be filming everything. The second step would be maybe doing a virtual trial. Maybe the third step is posting something on social media once a week, good, bad, indifferent, because it gets easier. You could go as far as you could Facebook Live your training. And I think you can set it so you could have you could show it to 5 people. You don't have to show it to your whole Facebook feed, but you can layer in the challenges for you so that trialing isn't such a big deal mentally. Yeah, filming gives you so many fantastic tools. You learn so much from filming. All right, what other questions do you have? I want to make sure that I covered everything. It's not a super beefy topic, but I think it's worth. If Shrek says no, going without cookies. Well, then it looks like sniffing. It will look like lack of eye contact. It will look like sniffing. It will look like inability to respond to basic behaviors. It will look like half-hearted responses to basic behaviors. So he'll do things, but he'll do them slowly. And then as far as the response goes, I say, okay, buddy, we'll try again later, and we just go back to the crate. And if it's a working session that I've set up in training, I just get another dog out, and I might try him again. We'll get another dog out. I might get him out again, but I'm not going to ask more than twice. And the same thing goes for a competition. I would just, okay, you don't have to, and we just go back to the crate and we wait. And then if there's another run that day, we'll go try again. And if he says yes, then we'll go run. And if he says no, we go home. And then I just kind of go back to the drawing board. If I'm not getting more yeses, I was just really putting in some magnificent effort to get him ready to start competing like this summer, this fall, and well, pandemic had better, different plans. So sometimes think that this whole thing is Shrek's fault because he wanted one more year before he really, really got into things. He just wanted one more year of homeschooling. Yeah. He doesn't want to go off to college yet. He wants one more year. Film everything, post to my dog's training Facebook page that I have, and a few people can be seen. I think that's a really good idea. To have just your own little private group. You invite a few people. I think that's clever. Filming shows me consent or not. Also handler mechanics, and I get to try it again. Also include errors and videos for my student learning tool. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's so much easier. Filming everything and taking a few notes on everything makes it easier in the long run because when you run into a problem, you'll be able to go back and go, oh, okay, this is where it started, or, you know, oh, I can see the rate of reinforcement has started going down here. Okay, yeah, and you can solve it so much faster. Christine, maybe we should have a topic on video tips in the future. Maybe. Or I think we could probably start a group thread because I think giving everyone a chance to kind of weigh in what they do and what they think works for them, that would be way better than me telling you what I do. 100%, Amy. Currently I have 2 that are just fine with being homeschooled. Shock also, she is here for virtual trialing. She thinks that is the coolest thing since sliced bread. And Shrek, he just wants cookies. Okay. I looked at my list, but I don't think we actually talked about it. So we're all good that sessions are more about effort. We're setting up those skills that you're pretty certain that they have fluent. You've got a really full reinforcement history for those behaviors. You know how to do the handling. I think that's really important, especially if you're getting to set up your own working sessions. Don't set up things that you don't know how to do. I can't stress that enough, that you need to know what you're doing. So if you are setting up courses that aren't your own, and which I think is a good thing, but you see something and you go, I have no idea how I should do this, don't put that into a working session. Not for a long time, because that should happen pretty instantly in real life. You're going to come across something in a competition that you're not sure how to do, and you're going to go at it, but that's not how I would train myself to do work, and it's not how I would train my dog to do work well. So that's a biggie. Make sure that you can do what you're asking the dog to do, because if it's something I can't do, I'm going to increase the rate of reinforcement so that I can convince the dog to stick it out with me rather than decrease it and try to muddle through it. Okay, so that's a biggie. Effort sessions include the routines. Start of run routine, end of run routine. And as much like a trial as I can. So if I can have some sort of threshold to go into, so entering the ring, I'm gonna have that. If I can have, and I just use 2 leashes with this, guys, so that there's just already a leash at the end, and so I don't have to have a leash runner. I don't have to chuck my leash across the ring because you're not gonna do that. Or now, I guess the protocol is you're running with your leash in your pocket, something like that. So try to just do it as you would in a competition. And that includes responding to errors, which there shouldn't be a ton of them, but it happens, right? But how you respond should be how you would respond in a competition for a working session. I don't stop in the middle of working sessions unless I'm going to leave, reinforce my dog, and then turn it into a training session. But I do not turn a working session into a training session in the middle of it. That's confusing. Don't do that. And then a learning session is about precision, maybe teaching something new, maybe brushing up on needs, reinforcement being put back into the jar. I'm trying to work on single skills typically, and I don't do the exact same routines. I might take my leash off much sooner and just let the dog kind of float around. I'm not formal with my start line routines in a learning session. If I use a start line, I usually use a station just to make easier, and of course it makes the loop so much cleaner if I can send the dog back to station. Things like that. It just make it look different because they already know it's different. Things like that. Yeah? Does that make sense? I clicked something and it went weird. Hence my face. My fan battery just died. Okay. Do you guys have any more questions? We might wrap this up a little bit early. All right. If you have more questions as they come to you, just post them as a new thing and a new post in the group, and I will for sure answer them. I can look real quick what we're going to do next. Oh, perfect. Next week, we're going to talk about dogs that are good in practice, not as good in competition. So discussing those differences, why they might be happening. Maybe this is already getting you to start thinking about why that might be happening. But next week, we're going to talk about why it might be happening and what we can do about it to get the same performances that we get in training in competition. So we're going to dive into that a whole lot deeper. So make sure you come back next week. And thank you guys for joining me tonight.